I'm now going to ask you, what is your outlook? So, Francesco, what is your outlook for you? What's your long-term outlook here?
Again, on Europe, the issue very often is whether the whole project falls apart, because during times of stresses, the periphery, which is economically weaker, of course, comes under enormous pressure. And so from that point of view, from the point of view that the ECB has really stepped up its game. Remember, after the global financial crisis, the ECB took several years before they introduced quantitative easing. This time around, they have been as aggressive and as timely as the Federal Bank in the US. So the political agenda is actually very good. On the economy, it is going to be, I think, a lot slower than the markets are anticipating. But again, I would separate between sort of economically sensitive companies and companies that are really doing quite well in this environment, whatever it may be. I think those companies will continue to thrive, because exactly that all that cash that is being printed has to go somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, something to hold on to in terms of positive news there, those companies thriving. Hugh, what's your outlook for Asia?
Well, I've been lucky to have been based in Asia for so long, and when I started here, the outlook was Asia's the fastest growing region in the world, which is a great place to start. And as of today, it's still the fastest growing region in the world for looking ahead for the next 5-10 years. So you've got the growth behind you, not the gangbusters growth it has been in the past, admittedly, but still higher than you'll find in most other major regions of the world. And then where we invest in smaller companies, there are thousands of them. So it's a rich field to be foraging in. One just has to weed out a lot of companies. But there's some real gems to be found. So combine that with the growth. It's much, in a sense, much the same as it's been for a long time. Just great opportunities.
I should emphasize here that Hugh is joining us from Singapore. So perhaps there are some advantages of doing these meetings by webinar, because we wouldn't have him otherwise. I'm very pleased he is joining us. I like that idea of the gems out there, Hugh. That really excites me. Gervais, the UK outlook.
Yeah, the UK economy is probably still a bit sluggish, like a lot of other world economies. I think it was fairly sluggish going into this. I think the world economy was pretty tepid before the crisis. I think it'll be slow coming out. I agree with Francesca on that point. I think particularly, unfortunately, with companies going bust and such like, I think the stock markets themselves will enter a period where a lot of companies are de-gearing and they're not putting extra debt, they're taking debt off their balance sheets, which tends to be dilutive of earnings. So I think, unfortunately, the stock markets themselves might end up producing very little return in the next 10 or 20 years, in the same way we've seen Japan since 1989. Basically, the markets go flat. Well, what do investors do at that stage? Well, of course, we pick out individual companies, and most particularly, the UK is very different from the rest of the world in having a vibrant universe of mid and large, yes, that's the same as others, but a vibrant universe of small and micro caps, and that's the area where we can differ. Because if you can buy assets from the receiver or from a distressed seller at the wrong price, if you can transform your business, generate a cash payback, then you can outperform. If you go back to the 70s and 60s, the UK stock market outperformed in main part because it had such a vibrant universe of small and micro caps. We are probably the most sort of well-developed market in terms of small and micro caps going forward. I think they'll outperform by an absolute mile going forward. I don't think the UK economy is going to do much, but I think the UK stock market might surprise everyone by having a long period of substantial outperformance.